Okay, I didn't want it to be too loud. Is it good sound quality?
Yeah.
I would run Facebook and LinkedIn ads.
Perfect.
And make contextual creative to the data that shows me who the historic customers you tend to get are. And I would run the ads against those demographics and psychographics. And I would make 43 different pieces of video starring you or somebody else that went to bring them value so that we built awareness.
So those ads would not look like my traditional TV ads.
Are you fucking crazy? You know.
So just so you know, Gary swears a lot. He's like swears a lot. He's like a drunken sailor or something. So yeah, so Gary swears a lot. But just so you know, what he said at the very beginning there was about. I'm not sure if you're really familiar. We did a little bit about this before, I think, in one of our past videos where we talked about pixels. I'm not sure if we did. Did we talk about that? I talk about it a lot on other videos that I've done.
I don't think we did.
Okay, so I did a Facebook talk. One of the things that you can do is what's called spicing or seasoning your pixel. And what a pixel is you put some code into your website, and when somebody buys from your website or somebody does something on your website, you can sort of track that person and what kind of person they are. Because what happens is Facebook, that provides this technology, basically knows everything about everybody, okay? They actually say that Facebook can determine where everybody on the planet is within 10 meters. That's how well they know what's going on in the world. So it's kind of crazy, but so the thing is, Facebook knows everything about that person. So when they do a transaction on your website, you can say, okay, this is the type of person based on their profile that buys from my website. So I know that people with a dog that live in their own house, that maybe have 2 children, that are a male or female, you know, I know all that, or they live in North America, you know, all these things. I know all this demographic information about them. And that is my ideal customer profile, okay? So what he was just quickly saying was when he creates ads, he's using these customer personas to post out ads to them. So he's saying, okay, I know who buys from me in the past. I want to just display ads to people that meet that persona, that meet that profile. And I only want to send out ads to them. Because those, you know, those same type of people are probably going to buy from me, okay? If they meet all those same criteria. So that's what he was kind of quickly talking about. He said it in a very weird, complicated way, and I probably didn't help any, but he just said it really quick. But that's really what he's talking about. Just that creating that customer persona and a profile, and where you know what they look like, and then advertising to them. So that's what he was talking about there.
Bad your traditional TV ad is, no matter how awesome you are. By building a brand bigger. Bigger, the only way, if that gets to the scale that it could, listen to the words, if that gets to the scale that it could, in 15 years, the only thing that's left is brand. They have to say, Alexa, can you get me bigger? You know, because if they say, give me a personal, you know, give me a lawyer, give me a whatever, a trainer, a milkshake, whatever, they're gonna have, and that is gonna play out.
Okay, so I'm just gonna rewind to the question, just because. How do we win with voice AI? So he was basically saying the importance of branding there, that if you are like Alexa and all these kind of Google Home and all these kind of ones where you ask your phone or your thing that's listening to you all the time, if you ask them, give me somebody that does this, somebody that buys and sells houses, or give me somebody that you know, I can fix my refrigerator with, you know, he's saying that brand is going to be everything when voice AI becomes so dominant that we just don't think about it anymore. We're not actually typing in searches anymore. It's just all voice. He's somewhat wrong, somewhat wrong in all that. Generally, voice AI is not that different than human AI. Like what we do, or no, human A, without the A, just I, human intelligence. What we do when we do a search is we use certain language. What is the best lawyer, okay? Or what is the, some kind of language. And what Google does, or any search engine does, is it looks up, based on that language, most relevant site, okay? That's SEO 101, okay? Well, with AI, all you're doing is you're instead of going to Google to make that same query, you're asking the AI that same kind of question. And all it's doing is making that step for you to go to Google or some search technology and pulling out that information for you. So AI or voice doesn't really impact SEO at the end of the day. If you target the keyword, if you optimize, you will always be ahead of the curve. Like, it doesn't matter how it changes. Ultimately, what's going to happen is you want to be at the top of the list for whatever keyword it is that somebody's searching, okay? So AI doesn't really change that. The only thing that might change is, as I said, what Google determines to be more relevant. That changes all the time, and we're already dealing with AI issues on that. AI is part of the equation already with search. It's not a human that goes out and ranks the billion or half a trillion sites that are out there or pages that are out there. It's an AI that does it, and it ranks it based on criteria. Well, if you know those criteria and you kind of manipulate your site to contain those criteria, you'll rank at the top. That's an AI thing. We're already manipulating for AI. So whether it's voice AI or whatever, it's all the same. Okay, so what he said was kind of a little bit wrong. But there is an element of truth there that brand does make a difference, because what happens with brand is one of the things that AI looks at is, does your website say the keyword, and how authoritative is your website? So if you have a lot of brand authority, where people have linked to your website, people are kind of saying that this is a really good, strong site, then generally you'll rank a little bit higher as a result for the keyword. So brand does make a difference, but it's not the end all be all, okay? So I'll give him a half on that one. So he's going to answer this question. How do I transition from traditional to digital advertising? Okay, so let's hear his answer and then I'll comment on it.
Yeah, if you by taking 20 to 40% of that money and putting it 100% into something like Facebook against your core demo, 45 to 90, that still translates there. And then by teaming up with your team and others to take 5% and start the beginning of that next generation, which is not going to, you are not going to do well at first, or maybe even at all on Instagram at first, but it's just starting to build the awareness. But I can promise you this, sir, and this is universal. There is no radio and billboard perfect execution that trumps perfect Facebook execution for who you're trying to reach. Here's why. On common sense, that billboard is vanilla. The fact that you can make a reference to Jalen Hurts transferring to Oklahoma, you could do all sorts of shit. You can make 8,000 billboards that matter to 8,000 different psychographic and demographic. Alabama's got a lot of micro personalities, genders, races, age groups. You're gonna make it, the Andy Warhol Super Bowl commercial last year that Burger King did missed the mark because nobody under 40 fucking knew what the fuck was going on. When you sell vanilla is a popular flavor, but when you sell vanilla, you miss a lot of customers. And what you're doing is sheer penetration, and you're no dummy. Billboards can't work as well as they did 10 years ago. Every passenger's looking down at their phone. I'd rather than see your pretty face.
Okay, so there was a couple things. So traditional marketing is like billboards, print, news, whatever. And really those are considered dead media. Because one of the biggest problems with traditional media and ways of advertising is, for example, the example he gave was a billboard. A billboard, you just put it up. Hopefully it's interesting enough that it catches people's attention. But the problem that what happens with that billboard is it's just, you don't know who's going to drive by it. You can't control who's driving by it. You know that they're going to be within that market. You know that they're in that neighborhood, but you don't control what they look like. You know, as he said, race, age, gender, all these things that might influence whether or not they would be even interested in what's on that billboard. Now, one thing that he's a little bit wrong about is billboards can be actually very effective if you know one thing that all those people in those cars would have in common. Like if you have a big billboard for like McDonald's and your McDonald's is right there, you know that certain number of people driving by are going to be hungry. Well, that's where a billboard becomes very effective. So there are places for traditional marketing that still make sense. What he's saying is for most businesses, what you want to do is figure out what your ideal customer is and then market to them. So what he was basically saying is on Facebook, you can really do that. You can know exactly what that ideal, he's still talking about that same point that he did in the very first thing, where you find out what that ideal person is and then you market to them. Very simple. Okay, so question number 4 that he's going to try to answer is, what's another way to create a community and sharing? Okay, not on Facebook. So he keeps on talking about Facebook, so they're forcing him to talk about something else. Let's see.
I get the sense that attorneys are not, their customers, if you're a corporate attorney, your customer is not walking around with Facebook. What's another way to gather and create community scale and charity? Like it's like mighty networks, is that stuff you see that going on? I think it's less about putting them into a funnel that's a technical infrastructure, and it's more about taking the thought of community and layering it up. So for example, one thing that I think of people are very naive of is how digital is actually the gateway to real life. So I think if you put out great content on LinkedIn, for example, which these customers are on, and you're bringing value to them from their perspective, not yours, and then the 19th post you put in, or the 900th is, hey, I'm actually going to be putting together a dinner where we're going to drink some good wine and just talk about business or this industry or corporate law. And the first 8 people to RSVP, I'll see you in a private room in the restaurant. I think when you want to get to the top, the way to put them into a Facebook group is to give them good wine in a private room in a restaurant that you use the digital content to create the RSVP.
Okay, that's kind of funny. Just so you know a bit about Gary Vaynerchuk, one of his first things was he was promoting wine. So that was what made him famous. So it's kind of funny that he kind of alludes to that there. So what he's talking about is somewhat true. You have to know where your viewers are going to be. Certain things, it just doesn't make sense to market them on Facebook. If it's a real B2B kind of situation, like advanced clouds for, some kind of weird thing, people are going to be like, oh, that's not very interesting, and they won't even notice the ad on Facebook. You have to know where your audience is. In that case, it's more on LinkedIn, where there's going to be people within that industry that are going to gravitate to your content. So one of the things that he's really talking about there is content marketing. And what you do is you create really, really engaging content that's really high level that people within that industry will appreciate. And then what you do is you create a call to action. So you build that community, build it up with, hey, I'm providing great content, lots of information. I'm the best at this because I'm providing great content. And then you give them a reason to engage with you. So he basically said, invite them to dinner. Well, that's one way of doing it. but you can also invite them to a webinar, or you can invite them to some way that they can engage with you. Or you can say, hey, download my ebook, or hey, I'm offering this, program or something. You give them something where they can engage with you and convert them into some kind of sale or lead. So that's really the idea, that you create a community by giving them something. And you don't give people something that you want, you give them something that they want. And that's super important, that you give them stuff that they will see value in. One of the biggest problems is most people write content for themselves rather than writing it for their audience. And that's really important, that you got to write for your audience, know what they want. And if you're not sure what your audience wants, ask them. In your anything you put out, make sure you always ask them, hey, what is it that you want us to talk about? What is it that you have questions about? And ask those questions. Use your comments. People will comment on your videos or comment on your content. And if they keep on asking the same kind of questions, we'll say, hey, look, I'm going to write an article about that. And then, answer those questions. You got to find out what people want and give them what they want. Okay.
I got a question. Is that considered great content, high quality content?
Yeah, of course. If you're answering people's questions, that's the best type of content, because that's what you're giving people exactly what they want. The reason people stay on pages, the reason things are sticky, as that's what industry term for it, that people stay on a page or stay on a video, is because you're giving them exactly what they want. People are desperate for really great information, and it's very rare nowadays that we can get really great information. We get sort of general information, but we never get that great information that answers that deep burning questions that we have. And that's why we have search engines, because people are looking for stuff. You give them what they're looking for. It's pretty simple. Okay, so what's your strategy for learning? Okay, this should be interesting.
So how much time you spend moving up the funnel and trying to do that with people complex on how to do it right now? How much important time you put on? Is it a byproduct? You do a lot and then you have to run through it and you constantly focus the things we're learning as you were doing?
Yes.
What's the give and take?
Fully that.
All these things.
Well, I spend 100% of my time on watching people react to things, not to the actual thing. 100%. But I also, and what D-Rock would tell you is, my copy skill, like I know what people want because I'm listening first. For all my talking and all my interrupting the question and all this, I'm listening at all times. Thus, I have a better sense. I just know what resonates because I'm so, and don't forget, and you know this is now fucking 37 years of like, I don't, this is talent. I've had to come to realize, I'm like, oh, right. In business, in entrepreneurship and communication, no different than in singing and in sports, there is natural talent. The reason I set up the conversation around lemonade and baseball cards, I've been doing this for so long. It's why I was such an atrocious student. It was so black and white to me that I couldn't even pander to societal norms of the 80s to even appease my poor mother, who would punish me so bad every report card because I wanted that every second in the classroom to figure out why did they laugh when I disrupted that? Why is everybody wearing those sneakers? I mean, like I literally just said something that I know D-Rock's never heard this. I used to sit in class and fundamentally analyze everything people wore without even knowing why I was doing that. And so that's it.
But then how much of the time that you spend with the audience building versus thinking about how to monetize that?
I spend no time. I'm a little bit unusual, and you may know, I think you know this. I have a separate business that doesn't monetize my audience, thus I spend no time. My great secret compared to all the other personalities is none of the important finances covered. Zero, because the framework's already been created. I just know there's some trickle down, but zero thought into it. I don't know, it's just not the way I think. I build other businesses to make sure I don't have to rely on any conversion from it. you can ask me when we sell a t-shirt for fun to learn, like I'll do on my text messaging platform, or if it's those sneakers or the wine, I really like better when it doesn't do well.
But it does not, because that is a promise for you. You have to replace it actually translate.
Yes, but again, the economics are so minute in comparison. Yes, but really, that fucking matters. That changes the entire intent paradigm.
Okay, so that was kind of interesting. So what he sort of talked about, it was little, yeah, I like his school analogy there. Personally, I'm going to give you my story about the same kind of thing that I do in my business. When I go to a meeting, generally what I'll do is for the first half of the meeting, I'll just sit there. I'll just sit and act like I'm a complete moron, actually. And I'll just listen to everybody, and I'll sort of get the sense of what are the pain points within the customers. What is it that their concerns are, and I'll get their reactions, and I'll look at the interplays between the people there, and I'll get a sense of who's the decision maker within the group, and who are the ones the ones that you can sort of use to, if you can get this person on your side, will it influence them? Or if you can get that person that's the decision maker on your side, what is it that will appeal to them? And I try to figure out all those power dynamics within the group that I'm meeting. And I try to get all their pain points. I try to get a sense of all that stuff. So I'm just sort of listening and just sort of getting a sense of the people. And then I'll open. When I open, you think, oh, he's going to say something brilliant after listening to watching and all that kind of stuff. I don't start with anything brilliant. Actually, I always start with a dumb question. And the reason I ask a dumb question is it's sort of a way to sort of change the mood. It gets people thinking, and it's usually a question like that sort of lets me sort of get an understanding of what their understanding of it is. So for example, like if I'm in a meeting and they're talking about their business and blah, 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 and they're I see all those dynamics, I'll ask them, what is your primary goal? Or what is your main product? Or what is your main service? And then from that, I will see that dynamic play out, because you'll have different people all with their different goals. Like a good example of this is a law firm. Now, I work with a lot of law firms where they'll have like different specialties, like medical malpractice, personal injury, car accidents, or whatever. And what you'll do is you ask that kind of question: what is your core product or core service? And the owner of the business or the main partner might say medical malpractice. One of the junior partners might say what their interest is family law. And you'll get that dynamic of where they want to go with the business. Do they want to focus on the junior lawyers, or do they want to focus on the guys that are making all the money? Where is the money being made? And then once you hear their response, you can generally figure out what is it that you need to give them to really make them on board with using your service. In the case of me, it's marketing. So what I always do is try to get that kind of simple question that just sort of breaks the ice and gets them really thinking about where is it that what is the most important things to them, and really playing on those things. And then once I find out that answer, then I sort of break down, well, okay, I've heard you guys talking. I see that you have these pain points. Here's some things that you can do to, to ease those pains, and solve those problems that that they're all talking about. And they might not even realize that they're talking about pain points. They might not. That's the funny thing. In a lot of these meetings, they don't even realize that they're talking about like problems that they're having. Like businesses will say, oh, March was a slow month or something like that, and they might not realize that they're talking about their problems within their business, and they're just giving you all this stuff that you can use to say, hey, I know you have a problem here. What is the problem? Why was March slow? Why, And was it slow because of seasonality, or was it slow because, you know, somebody was slow about delivering? What is it that caused the problem? And once you start breaking it down, you show that you are giving them what they want. And giving the customer what they want at the end of the day is really going to make them happy and make them work with you. So similar to what he was saying, where he was like in class and just analyzing everybody around him. Why did they laugh at that joke? Why did they do this? You get that sort of understanding. Once you understand people, you can really play to those people and give them the thing that they want. And he doesn't focus on just how successful is that product at the end. Like a lot of people just think, oh, I'm going to make millions of dollars doing this. Well, his focus is giving people what they want. The money will come because you gave them what they want. So making the money is not the primary goal. It's giving people what they want, and the money will just come. If you ever watch the movie Social Network, one of the funny things in it was Mark Zuckerberg was saying, you know, how are we going to make money off Facebook? And the guy that created, what was it? They created some Napster. The guy that created Napster said, don't worry about making money, just make it cool. And it's the same idea that money will come if you make it cool. It's not, making money is not a problem. It's making it cool that is every bit the problem. That's so hard. And that's what really Gary Vaynerchuk is talking about. He's talking about making something cool and making it something that people want, and the money will just come. It's a really big thing that you have to understand, that you have to really get into the mindsets of what people want and give it to them. Okay, so sorry for the long-winded explanation there, but I felt like it kind of deserved a bit more explanation. Okay, so when do I engage with negative feedback for my business? So this is one of those kind of questions that a lot of businesses ask, actually, because nowadays with stuff that's happening online, there is just so much feedback. You know, even on this video that we're looking at, look, there's 2.9 thousand people that liked the video. There was 54 that didn't like the video, and there was like 300 comments. So there's so much activity happening just even on the video that we're watching. So if you're a company, when you're putting out stuff there, you're getting a huge amount of engagement, and some of it's going to be positive, but some of it's going to be negative. And the question is, when do you engage with that negative thing? Do you even respond to it? Okay, and we'll hear his response to this.
It's a great question. Yeah.
But I haven't quite figured out a good formula.
There is no formula. I think you're actually think you've got it down, because I do the same. I just think it comes down to timing and serendipity. Sometimes you just have 15 minutes and you know sometimes when there's a lot of things going bad around me. I've got some fires, I got some issues. My grandma passed away this last summer, and when she was, with life, right? The Jets are 0-3. I'm on tilt, sometimes I'm not just in the mood to, I'm gonna have to spend 15 minutes maybe going back and forth to try to, right? Other times I'm bored, I feel fresh, I got 8 minutes because something got canceled. And I'm like, I'm gonna get in there. I wouldn't overjudge yourself. There is no proper answer. I think it's predicated on your current mindset to be able to be the bigger person. People lose because they go into a debate or a conversation, but they're not emotionally balanced, which allows them to get triggered, which makes them overreact, which changes the context of the actual narrative of the conversation, which fucks up the whole thing, AKA America.
Okay, that was kind of an interesting answer. Basically, his approach is, if you're not in the right mindset, like you're not ready to deal with that negative feedback, then don't deal with it. And that's probably good to a certain extent. The only issue is if you're in a bigger company where you have people that are kind of coming to you with problems, it can really spiral out of control quickly if you don't address those. A lot of bigger companies nowadays will have somebody that is dedicated to managing negative reviews and managing negative feedback before it becomes an issue. Because a lot of these things, they can spiral out of control so fast, where, you know, somebody, like, I remember this happening with one of my clients where they just didn't respond quickly enough. And the person, you know, because what happened was they had a funeral to go to. It was simple as that. They went to a funeral, they just weren't around that day. And so somebody complained, and they came back the next day and said, oh, well, sorry, you know, we were away for a family matter, and but 24 hours had passed. So that person that made a simple complaint went crazy within 24 hours. They started like destroying them. They went to Better Business Bureau. They started posting bad stuff about them all over on every review site that they could find. 24 hours, they were able to just try to destroy the business that they had a small complaint with. So had that been nipped in the bud, it would have been resolved. Now, Gary's not really talking about that, but it is an issue that's happening more and more nowadays, especially with millennials. Millennials are in a generation where everything is real-time demand. So if I want something, I want it now. And it's just the way that they've been brought up. Like when we were brought up, you know, we would have to wait a week for our TV show to come. And nowadays, whenever they want to watch something, they get it now. So their whole mindset is, now I need the response today, not even today. I want it like now, literally now. So a lot of these companies, they almost have to have a strategy where they have somebody that's just monitoring it. And there's tools that you can create that will actually help you monitor your reputation. I wrote a book about this one aspect, where what you do is you actually create what's called a Google alert, or you can create similar kind of things where you create alerts for whenever somebody mentions something about you, you can actually get a flag about it and you can respond to it as quickly as possible. Because the sooner you respond something, the quicker you can resolve it before it becomes a bigger problem. It's amazing how these little issues can take root and really become something big. Gary, his thing is more for small businesses, and he's not really seeing a bigger picture, but it's amazing how destructive people can be nowadays, and how easy it is for people to destroy other companies. Because you have like, we are living in a day today where anyone can talk to anybody at any time. And just think of that, what that means. That means that I can literally talk to anybody in the world at any moment and say whatever I want to them. You know, we have Twitter. I can engage with Donald Trump if I want to. I can tweet out to Donald Trump and say, hey, look, I don't like it that you did this. You could say that. That's how powerful of a technology we have nowadays, where there is no point where we're not connected to everybody in the world. It's kind of insane. So imagine if somebody just, for whatever reason, they don't like you, they can basically broadcast to the world that they don't like you and do whatever they can to destroy you. It's a very dangerous time in a way, but it's one of those things that we can prepare ourselves and protect ourselves by creating alerts, creating these things that will basically help us deal with any negative out there. It's something that I wouldn't just trivialize by saying, oh, you know, deal with it when you feel serendipitous about it. It's actually more important than that. I've seen too many businesses destroyed over something that really shouldn't have been a big issue. But if it was just addressed quickly, it could have been resolved. Okay, so my answer is very different than his. Last question. So we're almost done. Last question is, should I bring digital marketing in-house? Should I bring digital marketing in-house? I have my definite opinion about this one, so I'd like to hear what his opinion is.
You're not going to go when you go, oh, we're going to spend $30,000 a month with this agency to help us with our Facebook, right?
I think at a small scale, in-house is a great way to go. I do. I even think you can steal somebody. My belief is that everybody I'm looking at right now should take the at-bat to try and figure it out themselves, because it's that important. That was the point I made about balancing your checkbook. Like, to me, communications is oxygen, no different than actually understanding how to handle cash flow. I really believe that. I believe it's become that singularly important. I really believe that.
Okay, so that was his answer. I don't really agree. So his answer is everyone should do it internally. Yeah, I'm going to give you because I'm a consultant, I'm an outside consultant for every company I work for. I'm going to give you my biased, very biased opinion about this. So with digital marketing, you want to get the best. If you hire somebody, you're hiring somebody that couldn't do it on their own, that they weren't successful at it themselves. They maybe learned it in school, and you're bringing them in-house to do something. They're not good enough to do it where they can make money at it themselves. So you're getting somebody that's never going to be that expert, that guru. Okay, they're always going to be so-so. I mean, they'd probably be okay at it, but they won't be that guru. When you hire an agency, when you hire some expert, you're hiring an expert. You're getting that higher level, that higher standard. And the funny thing is, it can actually be cheaper than hiring somebody in-house. Typically, if you're hiring somebody in-house, you're paying them $50,000, $60,000. I do marketing for some clients where they're spending like maybe a couple $100 a month. It's so much cheaper. It depends on what your goals are. And the thing is, somebody that you bring in-house, they'll only have a certain level of expertise. They might be good at SEO, for example, and they might be able to optimize your website, or they might be good at running Facebook ads, but that's going to be their expertise. They're not going to be a jack of all trades and good at all of them. They're going to be kind of substandard on all of them, unless they have that focus. Well, if they have that focus, then you're going to still lack all those other things. So do you see what I'm saying? Like there's just, when you hire an agency, you get somebody who's an expert on SEO. You get an expert that's on marketing, Facebook marketing. You get an expert that's on how to build a website. You get all these talents that other company can provide. So, and then generally it's cheaper compared to having somebody in-house. Because not only do you have to pay for the cost of that employee, but you have to manage that employee, you have to pay for rent for that employee, you have to pay for all these things that employee involves. So for small businesses, generally it's better to hire an agency, like a small agency. You don't have to get like a huge agency, but a reasonable agency. If you're a bigger company where you can actually develop your own team within your company, like if you're like an IBM, you can have your whole marketing agency, and you'll get the top guys because they'll just want to go to IBM just to have that on the resume. So yeah, it's just a different. It's my personal bias because I am an outside consultant, but I think that generally, if you're a small business, hire an agency. Shop around to try to find an agency that you're comfortable with. And really get the expert that you can't just buy. You can't, So that's my opinion. This was my reaction video to the 7 insights entrepreneurs need to start using today from Gary Vaynerchuk.